This is Reality Dispatch, written by Jim Minns.
The fountain was on at 3:30 in the morning on a warm night in July in the center of Square Ambiorix. The choppy water masked the maniac's whistle. He played a tune from a film he had seen earlier that day. He waited, as he did most nights, for someone to stroll through the park at this late hour. He would maintain his position behind a hedge if they were accompanied by an escort, which was most occasions. On this night, he was in luck, but the proposed victim he had chosen was not. Brussels was not known for its slashers. He was hoping to change that. He wanted to put fear through the streets. He had suffered most of his adult life and was confined to his home under strict watch by his vengeful mother, who resented his existence. The world would suffer as he did, one person at a time. He trailed the man as he jogged through the park, clad in a fluoro singlet and shorts, his running shoes pounding on the gravel as his feet scrunched under the dirt. "Little early for a night run," he whispered as he pulled out his trusty flick knife and took a swipe at the jogger's torso, making a gash in the singlet and drawing a line of blood along his abdomen. Mathieu swerved to narrowly avoid the blade as it leapt out of the shadows and across his stomach. He was taken completely unaware of the attack. His head was still in a fog from the interrupted sleep. He had stopped short of satisfaction to achieve a perfect hour of exercise that had begun 12 hours earlier. He would never usually engage in such activity so early in the morning, but he was meticulous. On this morning, he wished he had not been. He yelled as the sting rang out. The knife-wielding maniac lashed out again as Mathieu jumped further backward, instinct doing most of the work. A hedge was positioned to his right, and he jumped over it in a single leap, creating a barrier between himself and the maniac. His attacker looked at him with a crazed smile, as if he had not tried to cut his body in half with a blade. He stalked Mathieu, heading toward the edge of the hedge to continue the chase. "What the hell are you doing, man?" Mathieu asked rhetorically. He held his hand to his navel in a futile attempt to stem the bleeding. The maniac said nothing, but adjusted his feet in position to continue the pursuit. As a stretch of separation increased between them, Mathieu took the opportunity to make a run towards the streetlights of Palmerston. The maniac leapt on foot behind him in close pursuit. He too was fast on his feet. The maniac was reminded of his first taste of freedom. He remembered the euphoria of running for extended periods down city streets and sidewalks, much to the annoyance of the lunch crowds and shoppers, not used to such a brute pushing past them in defiance of their use of the paved footpaths. When his mother was alive, she forbade his requests to leave for extended periods. He was never allowed to see a film, grab a beer, talk to a stranger, or go for a run. He loved the idea of running. After she passed, he ran every day without fail. He ran the streets to the villages and would collapse when his body ached and his paws begged for water. On more than one occasion, he was placed in emergency after having run for miles on end without the aid of hydration, almost killing himself in the process. Still, he ran. He loved their sensation, the freedom, the speed. He was able to escape the pain that his home life incarceration had placed on him. With years and years of running built up in his knees and his lungs, his lust for victims to hide his other ailments was the only thing that rivaled the sensation that running brought to him. As a result of his body that was built and contoured for life at speed, he was able to keep pace with Mathieu. Mathieu felt the maniac's breath on his neck hairs as he drew into his leg muscles and willed them to increase in speed. He was weary from the blocks and blocks he had already accomplished. When he had originally reached Ambiorix Square, he was beginning to wind down and head back home. Now he had to notch up his efforts beyond what his body was capable of producing. The pain in his stomach put the fear back into his weary legs. He bolted down Palmerston and remembered the river up ahead. He was desperate for a reprieve and didn't know anyone in the immediate area. He thought of the police station nearby, but he was already traveling west in the opposite direction. His only hope was the river, and he prayed that the maniac wouldn't be able to swim. The flapping fabric of the singlet leapt out, and the maniac knew that if he dived with his knife pointed firmly straight, there could be a very good chance he would land a blow and bring the runner down. If he missed, however, he would fall to the floor. and the advantage the runner would have meant he would lose him for good. It wasn't worth the risk, so he decided to trail him longer and farther, wear him out and hope that his lungs would give out, allowing him to take him like a wounded animal. The river approached closer and closer. Mathieu was breathing louder than his assailant and, as a result, wasn't sure if he was still being trailed. He was too nervous to turn around. Doing so would slow him down and reduce his speed advantage. It was safer to just maintain this speed and keep going, as fast and as far as he could. Keep running to the river and drive your body into the cold water. It would be green, dirty, uninviting, and would potentially cause a bacterial infection on his already overly exposed wound, which was bleeding profusely on the sidewalks. But it was necessary to avoid certain death. The maniac saw the river approach and instantly knew that the man was considering the reprieve of the water to end the pursuit. He stepped up his pace and was almost neck and neck. He could again leap out with the knife. Perhaps now was the opportune moment. Mathieu leapt across the final road that was to be crossed and was at least 4 meters from the river's edge. Despite this, he launched his body prematurely into the river. He was worried his landing would fall short and his bleeding torso would smack onto the gravel shore. This was a high possibility, as his launch was not taken from a high angle. Whether it was fear, instinct, or luck, like an Olympian with precision, Mathieu pierced the water like a torpedo and glided into the body of the cool, cold water. His reflexes took over, and he didn't emerge as his arms swam upwards more and more with a powerful breaststroke. It was precise and as fast as his jog. After his lungs couldn't hold the reserve of oxygen that had been left behind on the final intake, he emerged his head above the water and for the first time turned his head to look at the shore to see his assailant. He took a deep, loud breath and watched as the man who had decided to end his night stood on the edge of the river, quietly closed his knife, placed it inside his trouser pockets, and walked off as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred on this warm July night.
For more stories of fact-based fiction, head to jimmins.substack.com.